All right, yeah, we have a couple people absent. I do have a video on it, but I figured this might be a little bit easier since I'm only doing half of the notes. All right, so here we go. This is day 2 of the square root and cube root functions. So the first page we have already been through. So this is your square root parent function and your cube root. We already went through that, so watch the other video if you need it. But I'm going to start on page 2. And I'm going to start with the 5 and the 6, okay? So let's do 5 and 6, and then we'll move on from there. All right, so it says a square root parent function is reflected across the x-axis, shifted 7 units left, 1 unit down. So I'm going to go ahead and write my equation. It looks like this. A square roots of x minus h plus k. That's from the front page. All right, so I kind of have to just match where everything goes. So right here, a reflection. Which one of these variables do I need to use to show a reflection?
Negative.
Okay, a negative, which variable? A, H, or K? A. Okay, so I'm going to have to put a negative in there for A. And then I know that my horizontal, it says shift left. Left is a horizontal shift, so that's going to go where my H is. And then a vertical shift, which it says 1 unit down, will go right there. Okay, so I have 3 different things going on. All I have to do is fill it in. When you're reflecting, then you have a negative in the front. So it's a -1, no stretch or shrink, just a reflection. You always have a y and an x in it, just like you do a y equals mx plus b, right? You always, you filled in m, you filled in b, but you left your x and y in, so you leave your x and y in right there. And then if it is a 7 units to the left, that would be like a -7, but what do we know about h? You have to do the opposite, so what am I going to put? A +7. So if I looked at that, I would know that I'm really meaning -7, right? And then 1 unit down, what do I have to put on here? -1. And you are done. Yes. All right, so there you go. So now on the next one, a cube root function has a turning point. Now a cube root function looks the same, it just has a little 3. Your turning point is your h and your k. All right? There is nothing else besides a turning point, so y equals no a value, cube root of my, I put an x in there, my h, what's my h going to be? +2, and my k is a +3. And that's it. Easy enough. So just fill it in, make sure you do the opposite of your horizontal, okay? All right, now let's move on to our square root functions that we did yesterday. Now we did a good bit of it yesterday. We graphed yesterday. We know where our endpoint turning point is at 0, 5. So we wrote that. We noticed that that 0 for the x ended up being the domain, and that that 5 for the y ended up being the range. We're going to use that again, okay? Now, y'all are lucky that y'all have me second. Or y'all have me for 4th block, because now I can make sure that I explain things better than I did 3rd block, right? So when I look at the next things, my end behavior, I have 2 ends. I have end number 1 and end number 2. So here is end number 1, and here is end number 2. Okay? You have 2 ends to the graph. So you have this end of the curve, and you have that end of the curve. This end of the curve is a dead end. Do y'all see that? What is that ordered pair right there? That is 0, 5. So the first end is 0, 5. What a blessing, because guess what? Those are the same numbers that we have seen over and over and over again, right? Now the second end has an arrow on it, and that means it's going on forever, to infinity and beyond, right? Now, if I look, it's in quadrant 1. it will not travel out of quadrant 1. It will continue to go up and over, right? But it's never going to leave to go to like quadrant 9 or quadrant 8. There's no other quadrant up here, right? So it's going to stay in this positive quadrant. So do you remember when we did in behavior, we labeled where it was headed to? And this one is headed to the positive zone. It's going up and to the right. Up is positive, right is positive. It's going positive. Okay? That's how you get into this quadrant. You go positive, right? Are y'all good? So down here, for this end, it's positive. But it never stops. So what am I going to put right there? Infinity and infinity. Okay? All right, easy enough. Are y'all good so far? Now, remember with intervals, these are always x values. Okay? This is so easy. These are the ones that you hated before. I remember, Cody Allen. He did not like these. Okay, look at this picture and use your noggin. If I'm reading this from left to right, let me get my card. Is this increasing or decreasing? It's increasing. Do y'all see that? We don't have a decreasing interval, so we get to put a line through that. What a blessing, okay? One less thing to worry about. So when you read it from left to right, it's forever increasing. Very slowly, but it's increasing, okay? It starts to increase from this x value to that x value.
So
0 to positive infinity, which happens to be the same numbers right there. See those x values? That's what these are going to be. Starts at 0 and then ends increasing at positive infinity. 0 should be a bracket because we're including 0. Infinity is always a parentheses. So I want you to notice that these two numbers are these two numbers. I want y'all to see those connections, okay? All right, so the next few should be easy peasy. So now let's move on to my next one right here. I see the 1 and the 4, the 1 and the 4. Moving on to end behavior. Remember, I have this end right here, end number 1 and end number 2. Now be careful on this one. Let's start with end number 1. What is that ordered pair right there? 1, -4. That is where my first end is, at 1, -4. When x is going to 1, y is going to -4, boom, shakalaka, it is an end point. It's a dead terminal point, okay? Now my second one, be careful. This is going up and over. It's going more up and more to the right. Is it going to dead end in this quadrant or will it travel to another one? It'll eventually travel to the positive quadrant 1, okay? So either, since they're always going to the right, they're either going to end up in this quadrant, or if it's reflected, they'll end up in this quadrant, okay? But since this one's going up and to the right, it will eventually, for this end up in the positive quadrant. Now, get your little car out. Ready? Am I increasing or decreasing? Increasing. I am never decreasing. Mark it out. Don't y'all love that? Cody, you need to shake your head, right? Don't you love that, right? That's your favorite? Okay. All right, I know how much you love those. So look, it's always increasing, and intervals are always your x values. So it's going to start increasing at this x value and end increasing there. Remember, it just happens to be these right there. So where's it starting? 1 and ending at positive infinity. Do you love that?
Will it always be like that?
For square roots, yes.
Okay.
For cube roots, yes. But you don't have a dead end on a cube root, right? Still going to use those x values. Okay? And the cool thing is, this isn't going up and down and up and down and up and down. It's going one direction. It's either going up to the right or it's going down to the right. You know what I mean? So that's the nice part. All right, this one right here. Let's go ahead and look at our end behavior. We have end number 1 and end number 2. I always start with the terminal point right there. What is this ordered pair? -1, 0. So -1, 0. All right, and then my other end over here, end number 2, is going into what quadrant? Positive, positive. Positive, positive. To infinity and beyond. All right, get out your little square root car. Ba-rum, 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 bum, bum, ba-rum, 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 bum, bum. Am I increasing or decreasing? Increasing. No decreasing. And I'm starting to increase at -1. And I end increasing at positive infinity. Remember, whatever these are, this is 2. If you jack this up and rely on this for that, I'm sorry, okay? So make sure you're getting it right. All right, how we doing? Good? All right, let's look at one that is reflected, because we haven't looked at a reflected one yet. It will not take us long to get through these notes. Fantastic! All right, here we go. Racha, racha. Now, just in case you weren't here yesterday, look over here. I have a negative in the front. That negative means that my slope, my A value, is a negative. Instead of rising and running 1/1, I'm falling and running. So I'm going down 1 and to the right 1. My H and my K, that's my horizontal vertical shift, is a +2 and a +3. You do the opposite of what you see. All right, so we have that graphed. Now, this one, again, it's a square root function. So I have 2 ends. I have end number 1, end number 2. So end number 1 is at 2, 3. 2, 3, which you see repeated over and over and over. Now, this is the confusing part. This one's going down and to the right. So it's going further right, but it's also dropping down. Which quadrant will it eventually end up in? Yeah, it's not going to stay in this one. It's going to end up in the positive negative quadrant. It's going to end up here in quadrant 4. So it's going to travel down, 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 and eventually just continue to go down. So when I get way out here, it'll eventually end up in this quadrant, which is positive negative. So write that down right there, that this is your positive negative quadrant. Positive negative. And the reason is, it's because it flipped, right? So you've got some negative y's going on. All right, let me get out my little square root. Ready? Here we go. We're traveling. Da-da-dun, 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 da-da. Am I increasing or decreasing? Decreasing. Reading from left to right, I'm going downward. So I have no increase. Mark out increase. I only have decrease. I start decreasing from that point and onward. Okay? So from +2 to positive infinity, remember these are x values, it's going downward, okay? These are the same as these. Bracket, parentheses. All right, that's my last square root. We have 3 cube roots. These are easy peasy. Now remember, cube root, your domain and range, is always all reals because it goes on forever, forever, ever. Okay? All right, so this one was shifted back 3 and up 2. My end behavior, I have 2 ends, so I'm going to label them again. These, though, both go to infinity and beyond, right? So we just need to figure out where they're going to. So this one's a little bit more confusing, but it's still way easier than what we did before. So I'm going to label them. And some of y'all can already see it. So this one right here, is it going to end up in this top quadrant or is it going to eventually drop to the bottom one?
Negative, negative.
It's going to end up in that one. That's right. It's going to eventually end up in the negative, negative quadrant because it's going to continue to go downward. Okay? So I'm eventually going to end up in the negative, negative. What about this end right there? It's going to end up, it can't go anywhere but up, so positive, positive. So one of these will be negative, negative. One of these will be positive, positive. And what do I have to stick on it? Infinity. Now, get out your little square root card, cube root card. Ready? It's the updated version, it's the cube root. Ready? Am I increasing or decreasing? Reading from left to right. It's always increasing. It never drops back down again, right? So it's always increasing up. So I do not have decreasing. So mark out decreasing. It's only increasing. And again, it's starting way back here and increasing, and keeps going up. So from here to here, is there any stop on the x-axis from way over here to way over here? No. Goes on forever, right? Yes. So from negative infinity to positive infinity, it is increasing. Again, these same numbers. So it increases from negative to positive infinity. Read it from left to right, x values only. Okay. So that's not that bad? Not that bad. All right. Good thing I didn't do it yesterday because y'all would be like, woo! Okay, right here, is this one increasing or decreasing?
Decreasing.
Decreasing. Mark out the increase. All right, so this little Egyptian is walking the other way, right? It's decreasing. So now let's label our ends. Here's end number 1. What quadrant is this end going to end up in? Negative positive. If you're reading it this way, it's going upward, right? So negative positive. It's going to end up in this quadrant right here. And the other one, this one is going downward, right? You told me it was decreasing. Is it going to stay in this quadrant?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And what is this quadrant? Over and down. Positive, negative. And again, it's going from left to right, and so it's decreasing from way over here all the way to way over here. It's decreasing down. So again, from negative to positive infinity, it's only going in one direction, and that is downward. Again, these two numbers are the same as these two
So
numbers.
the cube will always be
Infinities.
infinities.
Yep, that's right, because there's no dead end, right? All right, our very last one. This was a teeny tiny shrink, right? Even with it being a shrink, look at it and travel from left to right. What am I doing? I'm increasing, right? So this is an increasing, not a decreasing. All right, so my turning point was at -1, -5, which you guys can see. Remember that you always put it over 1. So when it's a shrink, I know it's already in fraction form, so you might want to use up 1 and over 2, but you don't. You use up a half and over 1. And that's what we did right there, okay? Up a half and over 1. All right, end behavior. End number 1 is right here, and end number 2 is right here. Let's look at end number 1. This is going downward. Which quadrant is this leg going to end up in, this arm? Negative, negative. It's going to stay in that quadrant. Oh, the ha-ha-ha. I know this one's traveling up teeny, tiny bit. Barely traveling up, right?
It'll be positive.
I don't know if that's even coming in on the little screen. Might not even be coming in. All right, but this one right here, this one is traveling upward, right? So which quadrant will it eventually end up in? The positive quadrant. Put your infinities on all of them. Increasing intervals. It's only x values. And it's increasing from negative infinity to positive infinity. And that's it. Is that fairly easy?
So are all the real number ones, like, they're gonna be the infinity?
Cube root ones?
Yeah.
are the ones that have
Yes,
all real
with
numbers.
all reals. Yep, absolutely. All right, good job, y'all.